there were always rallies on Sproul Plaza. And I just remember for weeks and months going by and listening to speeches and hearing what was going on, or being there when they said, let's have a a sit-in, or let's show up and have a show of force. It seems simple to me that we should be able to put out flyers about political things. I thought, what's the big deal? We're supposed to have the right to do that, and why are they taking that away from us? So we should, this is right, and this is simple and easy about what's right. That was the way I thought then. I didn't understand all the complexities, and so I guess I just did a lot of listening and sometimes talking to friends. I can't remember if I was there when Jack stood up on the car. I think I was there, but sometimes you hear about something so much that you can't remember whether you were there or whether you only heard about it. I'm pretty sure I was. But I was there, again, that was a big action. And I was quite loyal about listening and joining in when things got thin, too, when there weren't very many people. And I remember one time it was like staying overnight, and I don't know if I stayed overnight or I stayed kind of late. And I remember another time where it seemed like the university was going to shut down the movement, and I don't remember dates or anything. And I walked away thinking, oh no, it's not going to work. And then the people in the leadership, made a move, and it came back, and so there was more. And so that's mostly what I did. And then I do remember, so why? Well, let me just say, I do remember marching in, making the decision, and I'll get emotional, sorry, about to get arrested. Do you know who Joan Baez is? Did you guys study her? She was a folk singer. She's still alive. And she was a folk singer that everybody knew. She had records, and she made Bob Dylan famous. Do you know who he was? Yeah. Okay, well, she discovered Bob Dylan and gave him exposure. So Joan Baez lived down in Carmel, and she was up there that day when we were going to march in, and she was singing, and Mario Savio was giving his famous speech, and people were going in, and whoops. And so it was, in a way, it's sort of like a semi-religious experience, and I'm not religious, sorry. But anyway, so I had to decide, after being a part of this for weeks and months, was I going to get arrested? And I think I did talk to my roommate, and I did talk to my boyfriend, and I don't think we walked in together, but they did, get arrested too. And, okay, so here comes some more of the why. I thought it was right, and then my parents had been lefty activists in school in New York. And they didn't stay active out here when they came to California, but they raised us in a very liberal way. And so the liberal way, was that all people are equal, and everybody should have equal rights, and you shouldn't discriminate, and all that. Pretty simple liberal, but that's how I was raised. I'm just going to remember when I was about 11, we drove across country to go to New York, and we visited Washington, D.C. And after we saw the Capitol, my parents took me around the corner of the Capitol, and this would have been in 56 or 7. And they showed me drinking fountains right just a couple of blocks from the Capitol that said colored and white. So that made a big impression, because it was still, Jim Crow and segregation. So I was standing there wondering whether I should get arrested or not, because that was it. If you went in, there was a pretty good chance you were going to get arrested. So those were the stakes, and I had been part of the movement. And then I thought, well, my parents did this when they were young. I'm going to do it. It was really kind of my parents' inspiration that got me through the door. And did I feel intimidated? I don't think so. I didn't have much consciousness that women weren't as involved. In fact, on the on the free speech movement leadership, there were 3 women, and so there was Bettina Afdecker. I don't know if you. Her father was important in the. Well, she's amazing. Bettina's a wonderful speaker, and her father was in the American Communist Party, but she was a professor at UC Santa Cruz subsequently, and Suzanne Goldberg was Mario Savio's wife at the time, and she was a graduate student in something, and she's gone on to be a psychologist, I think, and then oh God, another woman, Jackie Goldberg, who she's been on the city council in Los Angeles. Anyway, and so all of them were. I saw them making speeches, and there were more men, but that was a lot of women to be involved in the visible leadership. They were up there, and so afterwards, when it became everything morphed into the anti-war movement, which was much more about men, because they were getting drafted and all of that. And the women's movement started, and women started complaining about not being taken seriously. I was like, well, wait a minute, we had a lot of women leaders. So I don't think I felt intimidated. I felt a little scared about getting arrested. I got involved in the women's movement, and the women's movement wasn't about big demonstrations by and large. I joined it was very important. I joined a consciousness raising group, and probably in '69 or something, which was pretty early, and so that's the movement that really affected my life, and it affected my personal life more than it affected my professional life, and that I knew I would work, and I've always worked, and I worked part-time while I had a kid, so that was just really important, and I got into the women's movement again partly because of my mother's commitment. She was a feminist way before. When she went to Barnard, there were first wave women professors who had been, and my mother suffered a lot from what they call the feminine mystique in the 50s, just having to be in the suburbs and being a homemaker, and she didn't like that at all. I guess I've been thinking about it, and I think I talked to my roommate and maybe my boyfriend about it, or we didn't have cell phones, so I'm imagining myself calling them and saying, well, what are you, somehow I talked to them and I said, well, what are you doing? People came by, because people were streaming in, and there were others of us standing out there trying to figure out if we were going to go in or not, and I think either my roommate or my boyfriend or both of them came by, and then we had a discussion. I mean, I've been thinking about it, for me it was, I still remember how I felt, and I get emotional. There was just a moment where my head turned off, and I just, sometimes you just take a leap. And I just got carried along by what I believed in, what I thought my parents and my background was about, and by what was happening in front of me and all the people going in, and so I don't mean it was religious, but it's kind of, it's like, yeah, it was. There are, when they have big tented church events, I think they sometimes know how to get people into that state. So anyway, I was in a state of being very receptive, I think.